Deshaun Watson has emerged from minicamp last week with an early lead over Shedeur in the quarterback competition and has the inside track to be named QB1, according to Mary Kay Cabot. Head coach Todd Monken hopes to declare or at least identify his starting quarterback by the end of mandatory minicamps June 9th through the 11th. Ocho, I know it's early.
Yeah.
We were talking about this.
Yep. Yes.
We looked at the $46 million salary.
Yes, sir.
It's hard for a guy to be a $46 million to be on the bench. Either he going to start or you going to trade him or release him. But he wasn't going to be there. Take us away, Ocho. What gave you the conviction that you say, you know what, look, I understand Shedeur and he closed out, they got a new head coach. But Deshaun Watson going to be the starter.
Yeah, I understood Deshaun Watson, just understanding the business in general, Unc and Joe, especially the money that they invested in him, money that they can't get back. There's really nothing they can do about it this year. What he's making is what he's making. So if he's making that and he's actually healthy this time and there's nothing wrong with him, Unc and Joe, he's going to be in there as a starting quarterback.
Shannon Sharpe and Chad Johnson just put into words the fear that is sitting quietly in the back of every Browns fan's mind. Deshaun Watson came out of voluntary minicamp with the inside track on the starting job. And Sharpe and Johnson, two of the most honest voices in sports media when it comes to not sugarcoating what is actually happening, looked at that report and said the uncomfortable thing out loud. The $46 million salary almost guarantees Watson starts week 1. And Shedeur Sanders might spend the first month of the 2026 season watching from the sideline. That is the fear, and it is a legitimate one. But before we break down exactly why Sharpe and Johnson have this concern, and what it would actually mean for the Cleveland Browns if Watson holds a starting job deep into the season, you need to know 3 things first. First, Shannon Sharpe said something about Watson's situation that goes beyond the quarterback competition narrative and directly addresses what this season actually represents for Watson personally. It changes how you think about his motivation entirely. Second, Chad Johnson identified a specific scenario that should make every Browns fan genuinely nervous. A scenario where Watson plays well enough to make the organizational decision difficult, and the question that creates is one the Browns front office does not have a clean answer to. Third, both Sharpe and Johnson agree that Shedeur Sanders is the quarterback of Cleveland's future, and they both landed on the same timeline for when that future arrives. Is not as far away as the minicamp narrative suggests, but it might be further away than the fan base is ready to accept. Now, let's build the full picture, because the fear UNC and Ocho are expressing is not irrational pessimism. It is a clear-eyed reading of how organizational incentives work in professional football. The Cleveland Browns organization has approximately 46 million reasons to give Deshaun Watson every opportunity to demonstrate that his investment was not a total organizational catastrophe. That number is not a salary from which the team can escape by benching him. It is guaranteed money that has already been paid or committed. The financial damage from the Watson contract does not change based on whether he starts or sits. What changes is the perception of organizational competence, and no front office in professional sports willingly adds, "We benched our $46 million quarterback for an unproven second-year player," to its public narrative unless the on-field evidence makes that decision unavoidable. That is the financial trap Shedeur Sanders is operating inside. Is not that the organization does not believe in his ability. It is that the organizational incentive structure creates a presumption in Watson's favor that requires Watson himself to eliminate through poor performance rather than one the front office can proactively remove through competitiveness evaluation. Sharpe and Johnson both understand this because they have been inside professional sports ecosystems their entire adult lives. They know how the money works. They know what $46 million does to a coaching staff's decision-making calculus, even when the football evidence points in a different direction. And here is what makes the minicamp report so significant in the context of that financial reality. Watson did not just show up and look like a player who had forgotten how to play football. He showed up and competed. He took first-team reps. He moved well enough that the reporters watching practice left with the impression that the competition was real rather than performative. That is a meaningful development, not because minicamp performance predicts regular season performance with any reliability, but because it gave the organizational hierarchy the football justification it needed to align with the financial justification it already had. If Watson had looked broken in minicamp, if the movement had been visibly compromised, if the decision-making had been slow, if the arm had been clearly diminished, the organizational pressure to play him despite the contract would have faced a credible counterargument from a coaching staff. The film from Berea would have been the evidence that forced an early resolution. That counterargument is now significantly harder to make. And that is exactly why UNC and Ocho are worried. Chad Johnson put the most uncomfortable version of this scenario on the table directly. and it deserves to be taken seriously because it is not the obvious bad scenario. It is the scenario where things go deceptively well. What happens if Watson plays genuinely competitive football? Not MVP caliber, not top 5 quarterback level, just functionally good. Wins some games. Manages the offense without catastrophic decision-making. Keeps the team in games that a rebuilt defense can then close. Generates enough of a sample size that the organization can tell itself the investment produced something tangible. If that happens, the question becomes, do you pull him when Shedeur is sitting there with year 2 development, a full off-season of proper preparation, and a skills set that the entire offensive infrastructure was built to support? Johnson's instinct was no. The Browns would not re-sign Watson to another massive contract if he plays well, because the financial and organizational logic points toward Shedeur as the long-term answer. But his concern was not about the next contract. It was about this season. About whether Watson playing competent football creates a situation where the rational organizational decision, start Shedeur, build toward the future, becomes harder to execute because Watson's performance is just good enough to make the change feel premature. Sharpe had a slightly different read on the same scenario. His position was essentially that the Browns organization has already made its decision about the long-term future of this franchise, and Watson's 2026 performance, good or bad, does not change that conclusion. It changes the timeline. Watson playing well extends Shedeur's wait. Watson playing poorly accelerates Shedeur's arrival. Either way, the destination is the same. But here is where both of them land on the most important point, and this is the one that Browns fans need to sit with. Shedeur Sanders is not being wronged by this situation. He is being tested by it. The development that happened to Shedeur in year 1, the broken offensive line, the lack of a genuine receiving threat, the absence of proper preparation reps, was organizational failure. The situation heading into year 2 is different. The line is better. The receiving room has legitimate depth. The development reps happened this offseason, and the competition he now faces is not a manufactured obstacle designed to suppress him. It is a genuine professional challenge that his preparation, his processing ability, and his competitive instincts are going to have to answer. The quarterbacks who become franchise starters in this league are not the ones who walk in without competition. They are the ones who handle competition, who perform when the pressure to perform is highest, who take advantage of the opportunity when it arrives, and who close the door behind them when they step in. Sharpe used that exact framing. When you step into the starting role, you have to close the door behind you. Not just play well for one game. Take the job. Make the organizational decision to keep Watson on the bench feel permanent rather than temporary. That is the challenge Shedeur has in front of him. And the honest assessment of whether he can meet it requires acknowledging 2 things simultaneously. That Watson has legitimate organizational advantages that make him the presumptive starter, and that those advantages are not permanent enough to survive a sustained performance gap in Watson's direction. Now, let's talk about what the best case and worst case scenarios actually look like for the Cleveland Browns as an organization, because the fear Sharpe and Johnson are expressing is really about organizational decision-making quality, not just quarterback evaluation. The best case: Watson starts week 1, plays competitive football for 4 to 6 games, and the production is solid enough that the Browns win 3 of those games while the offense functions at a level that the rebuilt supporting cast makes possible. At that point, the organization has generated genuine film on Watson's post-injury capabilities. If the film says Watson is functional and the team is winning, the competition continues on merit. If the film says Watson has hit his ceiling and the ceiling is not enough to compete for a division title, the organizational decision is supported by the evidence. The worst case: Watson starts week 1, plays poorly from the beginning, and the organizational reluctance to make the change early, driven by the financial pressure and the contractual obligation to demonstrate good faith, delays Shedeur's entry by 3 or 4 games. At that point, the damage is done in standings, the season is more difficult to salvage, and the development reps Shedeur could have been accumulating in live game action have been lost. Sharpe and Johnson's fear is that the organizational incentive structure makes the worst case more likely than the football evidence alone would suggest. They are not wrong about that. But here is my final take, and this is where I am going to push back on the fear slightly. Todd Monken is not a head coach who will sacrifice his professional integrity to accommodate a financial obligation. He is a coach who was brought to Cleveland specifically because of his ability to develop and maximize quarterback talent, because the people who hired him believed he could navigate exactly this kind of personnel situation with the film evidence as his guide rather than the organizational politics. If Watson's limitations become clear on film, Monken will make the decision the film demands. Not because he is comfortable with the narrative, because that is what coaches who care about winning do. Shedeur Sanders is going to get his chance. The question UNC and Ocho are raising is how long the organizational machinery takes to create it. My prediction, Shedeur takes a starting job before the midpoint of the 2026 season. Not because Watson fails catastrophically, but because the performance gap becomes clear enough on film that the football decision and the organizational decision align. And when Shedeur steps in, he closes the door. Drop a comment. Do you think the UNC and Ocho fear is legitimate? Or is Shedeur going to take the starting job before week 1 even kicks off? Tell me the real prediction. If you want to follow this quarterback battle all the way through the season, hit that subscribe button right now. This is Gridiron Insights. We'll see you in the next one.